The same time as I was in Germany, so was the former Cabinet Minister Owen Paterson in Hamburg making a speech on Brexit and free trade, and he's with us now. Good afternoon.
Hello, Mark. Good afternoon.
Did you find that sense as well of general alarm that the Cabinet didn't know where it wanted to end up?
Well, my first sense was that the German audience I was addressing in Hamburg hadn't really taken on board that Brexit really was going to happen. And I think there's still a sort of sense of denial. And there's also a sense that, and it came out strongly in our questions afterwards, that Germany got into the euro at a very advantageous rate of the euro and is very, very happy with the current arrangements. So I was pointing out, it was very interesting, all your interviews with the car trade. They sold us 950,000 new cars last year, and Deloitte's have done a report that should we move to a position where we impose WTO tariffs, that's 10% on vehicles or 4.5% on car parts, that would be a real shock to the German car trade.
Hence their very grave concern.
Yeah, they're talking about a drop in units of 255,000, costing 18,000 jobs. But and there is, of course, this north-south divide. And when I mentioned my old colleague Ilse Aigner, who was the Agriculture Secretary when I was doing the CAP negotiation, with whom we worked really closely, she's been very publicly warning her negotiators in Berlin, particularly the Commission, not to upset the extremely close trading relations between Great Britain and Bavaria. And she's absolutely right. And this is the point I was making, that is screamingly obvious in the interests of all of us that we maintain reciprocal free trade. And as Liam Fox has been saying very clearly, and I was surprised that message hadn't got through, that we have a basis which is far easier to do a trade deal on, because we already have complete conformity of standards.
And when I put that to the head of the German Car Association, can't include everything in the report, he laughed. And we also heard, every other person I spoke to said, this takes a very long time. The idea that you can do it in 2 or 3 years is a nonsense, they felt.
Yes, well, this came up when I was discussing with them, that they think it is going to be extremely complicated. But our Trade Secretary is being very clear. We have total conformity of standards and we have zero tariffs. And they have a huge surplus with us. The EU surplus with us last year was 71.8 billion, rocketed by 9 billion sterling. And what was very clear while I was making my speech, they didn't realise how the UK's trade is reorientating itself to the wider world. We've gone down from 61% of our trade with the EU in 1999 to 45% today, and we're going to go down to 35%. I don't think that had really been appreciated.
But we could do an immense amount of trade now. I mean, Germany's imports to China are 170 billion euros compared to 54 from Britain. We could do it now.
But they mainly sell totally different products to the ones we want to export. But the key point of this came out very clearly in your interviews then, is that it is hugely in everyone's interest that we maintain reciprocal free trade. And as we have absolute conformity of standards, everyone should get their head around that. But whereas they are still thinking entirely in terms of remaining in the current institutions, and that's clearly what we're not going to do. We're not going to stay in the single market. We're not going to stay in the customs union. We're certainly not going to stay under the remit of the ECJ. And that was something I found they had not really got their heads around.